Dunkelheit by Burzum. So the first thing you need is a guitar in E standard, tuned at 450 Hz. And what we're going to do today is cover the beginning of the song up until the main riff. The beginning of the song focuses on these chords: E power chord, 7 and 9 on A and D, E flat, same strings but 6 and 8, B, 2 and 4, back to E, F sharp, 9 and 11, then back to the E flat. So one of the guitars just plays this right at the start of the song. And over the top is this arpeggiated pattern, which is when you pick individual notes of a chord. And you take the same chord progression, but we just add some open strings now. So what we need to do is play this E power chord shape here, but have G, B and high E open. And what we're going to do is pick from the A string to the high E, then back up to the D string. Then move your hand 1 fret down, then pick from A to G, then back to D. Then we do the same thing with the B. Now there's a bit of a pattern forming. The first chord you play goes from A to high E to D in the picking, and the other chords just go from A to G back to D. Then we need to do the same thing with the other chords that we learned. So back to E, F sharp, then E flat. And that repeats even when the drum kicks in. Then when the drums kick in, the rhythm guitar plays a slightly weird rhythm because the chord changes are not exactly on the beat, they are an 8th note before the next bar. Now what do I mean by that? So if you strum 8 times in a bar, what you're doing is playing 8th notes, since one strum is 1/8. What we're doing is we're changing our chord on the final 8th note, the last strum of the bar. So we do this. The last chord was on the 8th strum, the final 8th note of the bar. And this is a theme throughout the next bars. We're going to be changing the chords 1/8th note earlier than normal. And it follows the same pattern. The next part, when you've got the ringing out guitars and the drums take a step back, the rhythm guitars just play 2 chords in E and a C power chord 3 and 5 on A and D. It's that simple. They just play those 2 chords. It goes E, C, E. Now we play more chords and arpeggios. So it starts off with this lower E power chord here, 0, 2, 2 on E, A and D. Now normally you would fret the chord with your first finger, but because we're going to be playing open strings, we're going to fret the chord with our first and second finger. So we're going to pick the chord, then we're going to pick from high E to D back to G, keeping our left hand on the E shape. And then we're going to pick the entire chord from the high E back to the low E. And on that second time round, we finish our picking on the A string, because on the next beat is when we play the C power chord. So I'm going to play that part again slowly. we need to do. The tricky bit is remembering what strings to pick, but I've got tabs available in the description and on screen, so it's going to be much easier for you. Moving on to the C chord, we strum the C power chord. And then we're going to be picking from the D to the high E, back to D. And then we're going to do that again, but instead of strumming the chord, we're going to be picking from A to high E, back to D. So the two parts just go like this. So going from the C chord, we play the same thing as before, just with a different ending, where we play the 4th fret on D and G a few times. The trick is to be quick with your chord changes and just be accurate with the picking. So we have these 3 strums as a lead-in to the next bar. And what we're doing is playing a G minor bar chord, 3, 5, 5, 3, 3, 3 from low E to high E, then we move it 1 fret down to the F sharp, so you just minus everything by 1. So that final down strum was the beginning of the next bar, which is important to remember. The riff doesn't start with the strums. It's a lead-in to the next bar. The actual riff starts. So we go up, down, up with the strumming, and start the next bar on the F sharp with a down strum. Now the second strum is this slow raking motion. You want to drag the pick from the high E to the low E. You don't want to strum it, you just want to take a bit more time with the strum. And we just follow that same pattern with the E chord here, the E minor. We have the lead-in. And then the strums of the chord. Now I could explain this with like eighth notes and quarter notes, but that's going to be way too confusing. What you want to remember is the rhythm. And that way it's easier to remember. Because there's only 3 chords to play: G minor, F sharp minor, and E minor. The important part is the picking. And that's Dunkelheit. Remember, tabs are available to download in the description below. Links down to merchandise, courses, socials are all in the description below.